Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Break with Spruill. I'm Amy Gresens, and I'm a jewelry instructor at the Spruill Center for the Arts. I teach a beginning jewelry class and a Beyond the Basics jewelry class. And today I'm going to show you how to work with resin to create colorful jewelry. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are at my resin station, and I've got my resin set out, and I've got some earrings that I've created that I'm going to pour the resin into today. And everything I'm working on is on this masonite board here. It's got some resin spills on it. It's a little messy, but it works great. It's just a nice flat surface, and that's something that's critical when you're working with resin, is to work on a flat surface, so that way the resin will level out in the piece that you're pouring it in. Now, I am a jewelry designer, and so I have a studio with a torch, so I designed these earrings, soldered them together. They're made from sterling silver, but you don't have to do that. You could just buy some prefab pieces if you just want to kind of experiment with resin and see if it's something you even want to do. And so I ordered like this cool little key on Amazon, and I can pour some resin. You see it's got a little bezel around the edge, so it's got enough area that it will hold some resin. I also have one of these little guys. You could pour resin in there as well. So you don't necessarily have to have a full jewelry setup at your house to work with resin. And the resin we're working with today is ice resin. It's right here. It's a jeweler's grade resin. So what that means is that it's guaranteed not to yellow over time. It's crystal clear. Some other resins you work with do yellow over time, so that can be kind of an issue. This one is a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning we're going to mix 1 part resin, 1 part hardener to get the combination together to get it to set up. On their own, the resin and the hardener, nothing happens. It's the mixing of the two that creates the chemical reaction to then get the resin to cure. So what I have here are some just little mixing cups, little medicine cups, and I've made a black line where I want to pour my resin, and I'm going to pour resin in 1 cup and then hardener in the other. And the reason I do that is one of the issues with resin is that if you do not get your measurements exact when you're mixing the resin and hardener, then it won't set up properly. And what happens is that it'll be sticky, it could be cloudy, and then it's kind of stuck in the piece that you've poured it in. So you want to make sure that you take the time to get your measurements exact. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this resin. When I pour my resin, you can see in my cup here, I can see my line from the outside. I like to just look in the cup and then pour my resin and the hardener to that line. I don't want to have the line facing me where I have to turn my head from side to side to see if I'm hitting that mark. So this is the resin, and I'm just going to squeeze it into this cup. And you can see it's pretty thick. So I'll squeeze a little bit, and then I'll wait to see how it rises up to the line. I want it to kind of level out in the cup. So it's not quite there yet, so I'm going to put a little more in. And if I miss my line, that's not really a big deal. I just want to make sure that when I put the hardener in the other cup, that it matches what I have put with the resin in this cup. That looks pretty good. One thing about this ice resin, I would suggest doing, you don't want to mix your caps, because if you mix the caps, then you could actually get them stuck on there. So on the hardener, I made a black dot on the cap and on the bottle, so I know that that cap goes with that bottle. And you see the hardener, look, it's a little thinner, comes out more quickly, so that's where you just want to be careful and don't be too aggressive when you're pouring. And I'm only mixing a small amount today. Normally when I mix my resin, I kind of will mix a full cup of these, but I have these, 3 pair of earrings that I'm going to work on today, so So I think that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the two together. And again, what I was saying before is that in this state, nothing happens. I could leave this for days, you know, nothing would set up or anything. It would just kind of stay in this state in these cups. So I have a plastic knife and I'm going to mix my resin with the plastic knife. I like the plastic knife over wood. Wood has a tendency to retain moisture, which can get released into your resin, and then that can affect how it is setting up. It doesn't matter which cup you pour into the other, but you are going to pour one. And you want to take the time to make sure you get as much of this out of this cup and into the other cup. But what I do with my mixing is I'm not going to worry too much if I don't get every last, you know, morsel of this liquid in there, because I'm going to mix in one cup and then I'm going to switch it back and mix into the other cup. So I mix for 2 minutes in one cup, which I'm going to do here, but I'm not going to bore you with a full, you know, stirring of 4 minutes. I mix this total for 4 minutes. So do 2 minutes in one cup and then 2 minutes in the other cup. So I've kind of staged this and I already have a batch of resin mixed. So I'm just gonna put this off to the side and I'm gonna go over to what I have already mixed. But just know 4 minutes. Some people say 3, I think that's fine. But I just always do 4 because you can't actually overmix the resin, but you could undermix it. And if you undermix it, then you're going to run into that issue where it doesn't set up properly. That's 9 times out of 10 when somebody talks to me about resin, they said, I tried to work with it, it didn't set up. The questions I ask, well, how long did you mix it? Oh, I only mixed it a minute. Well, then that was the problem, or your measurement was off. So here I have my already mixed resin. You can see it's looks kind of foamy. It's got these bubbles on there, and that just happens when you mix the resin. I'm going to show you how to get rid of these, but don't stress out about when you're mixing your resin. Oh my God, I'm getting all these bubbles. That's okay. It's just part of it. Because you want to make sure that you mix it really well. So I have my other cup. You know, I started out with 2 cups and now everything's in one. So I'm going to mix a little bit of color and I'm going to work on these earrings here. I'm going to do kind of an ombre color here. I thought that would be fun, so you can kind of see what that looks like. Let me just get I have a little tray of chalk pastels, and that is what I use to mix my colors. So I thought today I would do orange and gray. I love those 2 colors together, and orange is just such a fun, vibrant color, especially right now, springtime, everything's blooming, it looks so pretty outside. So I love the Prismacolor chalk pastels. They're my favorite. You can see these, they get kind of dirty over time, but they work great. They're really hard, so you can get a nice fine powder into your resin. I've had some other ones that aren't as great, but these are good. Also, the nice thing about these, you can get these, you know, at your local art supply store, and you don't have to buy a pack, like a multi-pack. You can just get individuals of these. So that's what I usually do. I'll just go down to binders and sift through all the colors and pick out the ones I want. And it's just like mixing colors, you know, like mixing paint. I could mix these 2. This is kind of a red orange and this is more of like a yellow orange, so I can mix them together to get the tone I want. You could mix, like, you know, red and blue together to get a purple. So I don't want to mix this entire thing. I don't want to make all of that orange because I want to do some gray too, right? So I'm just going to pour a little bit into this cup. And then I have a little blade here, that's like a box cutter, to shave my powder into my cup. So since I'm going to do ombre, I'm going to start with the lightest color first, lightest shade, I should say. So I'm just going to mix a little in here. And I want something kind of in between the yellow orange and the red orange, so that's why I'm mixing the two together. So you can see it just sitting on there. I'm going to take my knife, stir it around. And then I have a nice, that was so quick, you know, it doesn't take much just to get a nice tint. And with the powder pigments, you can get kind of translucent colors all the way up to opaque. The more powder you add, the more opaque the color becomes. So let's think about, I think I'm going to do my gray. I want to do that in this space here, I think. So I'm going to do my light color. I'm just going to drop it in here. I'm going to use my knife to kind of push it around a little bit just to make sure it fills in the corners. Oops. I'm going to do that on this one too because it's a pair of earrings. So okay, so now I'm going to make the color a little bit darker. Let me line that up so you can see better. And you can't see, but off to the side I have a piece of wax paper and I just put my knife on there. It won't, the resin won't stick. I mean, the knife won't stick on the wax paper, so. So I'm going to put, let's make that just a little bit darker. Okay, that's better. Sometimes with these, this earring is pretty complex, and if I don't have it all soldered together, the resin will run through. That's kind of annoying when that happens. Then you just kind of have to let it set up. And this, because it has an open back, I can drill out the resin if for some reason it ran together, but so I'm not trying to put too much in here, just doing a little bit. Don't want to overflow it. Resin it has a natural tendency to create surface tension, so it will naturally dome, but it won't let you know when you've done too much, and then it'll just spill over and go everywhere. And so that's also kind of annoying. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix just another darker, I'm gonna do the darkest color here and here. Darkest orange. You see I'm kind of putting a lot of powder in there. I just want to get it pretty opaque. And now some colors you mix with resin will always have a little translucency to them, but other colors, like if you made a black, that's just always going to be opaque because it's black. So I love this color. It looks so pretty. and as true to form here when I'm working on things, I have decided, just on the fly here, I'm not going to put anything in here. I'm going to leave that open. I like to have that negative space. It kind of is a cool look. So I have this cup. I'm done with this orange resin, so I'm just going to put that off to the side, and I'm going to take another cup, empty cup, put a little resin in there to mix my gray. So one thing about these cups is I always use fresh cups when I mix my resin, but I'll save these, I'll wipe them out with a paper towel and save them, and I can use them to mix my colors. So I don't mind if I'm mixing in a used cup to mix my colors. So I just took a paper towel and wiped off my knife, got it clean, because I don't want to put the orange that was on there into this gray. So I got a little nub of gray. I'm gonna have to get some pretty soon. But these little chalk pastels last quite a long time. I mean, just think how little I'm using. Okay, that looks good. It's always best to start with a little bit of color and then mix and add more if you don't like it. It's really hard if you put too much pigment in there to get it back lighter. You have to add more resin, and then sometimes that just doesn't work. So that's one tip I would give you, is just to start with a little bit and then add more. And so I was saying earlier about this open back work. I just have, I put my earrings on masking tape. It's a nice low tack tape, so it won't stick. The resin won't stick to it. And I've tried packing tape before, and the glue from the tape got stuck to the back of the resin, and it was a big mess to clean up. So I like the masking tape. I find this at Home Depot, and it's the extra wide. I think it's like 2 inches wide. So it's, sticky side up. So there is my earrings. Those look pretty. It's so far so good with anything bleeding into anything else. I have cats, so sometimes I might find a little piece of fuzz, little cat hair in here. So I've got this wooden skewer that I use. You can find these in on the kitchen aisle at the grocery store, and you can just kind of dip in there to pull any fuzz out. So I do have bubbles in here. I can see, you probably can't see from the video, but that's what happens. And as I told you, with mixing, and you can see them here. So what I do to get rid of them is I have this great lighter, and I just very quickly touch it to the top of the piece, and it will pop all the bubbles. It's just like magic. And I'll show you, let's see if I can show you in this cup. I don't know, we'll try. I don't know if you can see that, but there's this little section doesn't have as many bubbles now. So the other thing though about the bubbles is this resin has about 45 minutes before it starts to set up. And what I mean by set up is it gets thick. Eventually it's hard when it's finished. And so as it sits, the bubbles will just naturally rise to the surface. So you can kind of wait if you want to, or like I said, this lighter really is the key. It's so quick and easy. So I've got these are also some earrings. I'm gonna mix some other colors. One I'm gonna do is, let's see, I'm gonna do this aqua color. I did a demo before with this. This color is, everyone loves this color, especially this time of year. It's so bright and pretty. Again, I have to wipe off my knife. Now if I had a big piece, I do make these big teardrop earrings, and sometimes I'll just pour directly in because they're so large. I can do that, but most of the time I just put a little bit on my knife like you see me doing, and then just drip it into the form. And I'm going to just I'm just going to take a paper towel and wipe this out, so that way I can use it for another color. And see, it's all ready to go. Oh, it's wiped out, it's clean. I'm going to mix red. I'm kind of having this like love of red lately. And this red color I mix is just, it's so pretty. I use these two colors. This is a crimson. This has a little more orange to it. Red is a tricky color to mix. You have to use a lot of chalk pastel in there, like more than you would think, because otherwise it'll look pink. And there's my kitty in the background if you heard her. Oh, she's meowing. She's my little studio mate. She's a helper sometimes, mostly hinders, but. Okay, let's see if that is enough. Yeah, that looks good. When I love red and turquoise together too, or like this red and aqua. Look at how pretty that red is. Oops, sorry, I bumped the camera. See, I don't know if you can tell, like, see how it's getting kind of thick? So, because I mixed this, well, we're 20 minutes or so into the demo, and so it's starting to set up, which is perfect. That's what you want. If it's still, by the end of like 45 minutes, if it's still in a really liquid state, then something went wrong. So it's probably not going to cure. So there are my earrings, and now this process will take almost a total of 3 days to cure. I see some bubbles over here. Sorry, I got distracted. So what I want to do is I'm going to clear off kind of my workstation here, move the resin out of the way. In the background, I have a box top, and I just put that on top of my piece, so that way it keeps dust from getting in there. There's nothing more aggravating than when you've made maybe like 30 pair of earrings, which I'll do sometimes getting ready for festivals and things, and I come back and check on them and there's all set up and there's a piece of dust in there. And I mean, that does happen. It's not a big deal. What you can do is kind of sand it out, and then you can put a clear coat of resin on top. So, but it just slows down the process. This is not something that you really want to happen. So that's what I have, this box top here, and I'm gonna cover the piece, and I will leave it there, and I will come back in, I'll probably come check on it tomorrow just to make sure everything looks good, set up okay, and then these will be ready to go in 2 days, 3 days, and then I'll add my ear wire and I will have them on my website. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this demonstration.